What if I told you that the biggest reason you're not where you want to be in life isn't lack of talent, luck, or opportunity? It's the silent, daily collapse of your willpower. Not in dramatic moments, not when life hits you hard, but in the small, invisible decisions, the ones no one sees. The extra 10 minutes in bed. The I'll start tomorrow. The moment you knew what was right, but chose what was easy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your brain remembers. Not emotionally, biologically. Studies in behavioral psychology show that repeated broken commitments weaken your internal sense of control. Over time, your mind stops taking your own intentions seriously. You don't just lose discipline, you lose trust in yourself. And once that trust is gone, everything becomes harder. Focus becomes fragile. Motivation becomes temporary. Goals start feeling distant, almost unrealistic. But here's where it gets interesting. Willpower is not something you're born with, and it's not something you either have or don't have. It's a system, a trainable, measurable, and exhaustible mental resource, just like a muscle. Research from cognitive science reveals that willpower operates through the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision making and self-control. And just like physical muscles, it gets tired with overuse and stronger with the right kind of training. That means this: your failure is not permanent. Your inconsistency is not your identity, and your lack of discipline is not a life sentence. It's simply untrained power. Think about it. There are people who wake up early every single day, not because they feel like it, but because they've trained themselves to act regardless of feeling. There are people who build businesses, transform their bodies, master skills not because they're more motivated, but because they don't negotiate with their own mind. They decided once and stopped deciding again. That's the difference. Willpower is not about intensity, it's about consistency under resistance. And resistance will always be there. Your brain is wired to seek comfort, conserve energy, and avoid pain. From an evolutionary standpoint, this kept humans alive. But in today's world, that same wiring is keeping you stuck, because growth demands discomfort. Progress requires friction, and success demands that you act against your immediate impulses. So, the real question is not, do you want success? Everyone does. The real question is, can you act when you don't feel like it? Can you stay committed when the excitement fades? Can you keep going when nobody is watching, clapping, or expecting anything from you? Because that is where willpower is built. Not in motivation, not in inspiration, but in quiet, repeated, often boring decisions that slowly reshape who you are. This book is not here to motivate you. Motivation fades. This is here to show you how to build something far more dangerous, a mind that does what it says it will do. A system that removes excuses. a version of you that doesn't rely on mood, emotion, or perfect timing. Because once you master your willpower, you don't just change your habits. You change your identity, and when your identity changes, everything else follows. So before you turn the next page, understand this. You are not here to read. You are here to confront the gap between who you are and who you know you could become. And by the time you finish, that gap won't exist anymore. The power of your will let me ask you something. And I want you to actually think about this. Don't just let the words pass through you. Think about it. When was the last time you did something hard, something genuinely, uncomfortably hard? Not because you felt like it, not because you were motivated, not because the conditions were perfect, but simply because you decided to. Sit with that question. Not the last time someone was watching. Not the last time you had accountability. Not the last time failure would have been embarrassing. The last time you were completely alone, no audience, no deadline, no consequence except the one you imposed on yourself. And you chose the hard thing anyway. That moment, that single, quiet, private moment of choosing action over comfort, is the most important moment a human being can experience. It is the moment where your life either moves forward or stays exactly where it is. And today, for the next 90 minutes, we are going to talk about the force behind that moment. We are going to go deep, deeper than motivation, deeper than habit, deeper than any advice you have read in a book or watched in a video. We are going to talk about your will. Your will is the engine underneath everything. It is the thing that is either running your life or failing to. And most people go their entire lives without ever truly understanding it, without ever seriously developing it, without ever discovering what becomes possible when it is fully activated. Today, that changes. Stay with me, because by the time we are done, you are going to understand something about yourself that most people never figure out in an entire lifetime. And more important, any class or seminar or textbook you have ever encountered. Think about everything you were taught. Think about the years you spent in classrooms, in training, absorbing information that was supposed to prepare you for life. They taught you mathematics. They taught you history. They taught you how to read and write and analyze and compute. They taught you about intelligence. They tested your IQ. They ranked your grades. They sorted you into streams based on your scores. They told you, directly or indirectly, that smart people get ahead. They taught you about talent. They put you in advanced classes based on what you were naturally gifted at. They applauded the talented ones. They told you that talent is what separates ordinary people from extraordinary ones. They taught you about opportunity. Get the right degree, know the right people, be in the right place at the right time, and success would follow. And they were wrong. Not completely wrong. Intelligence matters. Talent is useful. Opportunity opens doors. But none of those things, not one of them, is the deciding factor in whether you build the life you are capable of building. None of them guarantee that you will follow through on your intentions. None of them ensure that you will keep going when things get hard. None of them determine whether you will honor the commitments you make to yourself when no one else is watching. Do you want to know what does? It is simple. It is unsexy. It has no marketing campaign. Nobody is selling it. Nobody made it into a supplement or a productivity app. It is your will. Your will is the quiet force that shapes your life. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't ask for recognition. It doesn't need perfect conditions or the right mood or an inspiring soundtrack. It simply decides, and then it does. While motivation fades, your will remains. While emotions fluctuate, your will holds steady. While talent sits idle and intelligence overthinks, your will moves. While circumstances shift and change and sometimes fall completely apart, your will is what decides whether you continue or stop. Write that down if you can, or say it out loud right now. Your will is what decides whether you continue or stop. Not your feelings, not your circumstances, not what other people think of you or what they have decided about your potential. Not the family you were born into, or the resources you were given, or the advantages you didn't have. Your will. And here is the truth that should land heavily right now. Most people have never seriously trained their will. They have drifted through life relying on motivation, on the feeling of wanting to do something. When the feeling arrived, they moved. When it didn't, they waited. They made promises to themselves and then renegotiated those promises the moment discomfort arrived. They started strong and finished weak. They had bold intentions on Sunday night and made quiet excuses by Tuesday morning. And so their life, their real, full, extraordinary life, has been sitting just on the other side of the resistance they have been refusing to push through. Not anymore. That is not an affirmation. That is a decision you are making right now, by choosing to spend this time thinking seriously about the one thing that can change everything. Your will. Part 2. The definition that changes everything before we go any further. I need to give you a definition. Not a dictionary definition. A real one. One that you can use. Because most people think they understand willpower. They think it means white, knuckling through something unpleasant. They think it means being the hardest person in the room, the one who never cracks, never bends, never admits to struggle. They think willpower is a personality type, something you either have or you don't, something you were born with or you weren't. That is not what willpower is. Willpower, real willpower, is this: the ability to act despite resistance. Say that again to yourself. Despite resistance, not in the absence of it, not after it disappears, not when you finally feel ready or energized or certain. Despite it. This one distinction changes everything. And I mean that literally, not as a turn of phrase, but as a factual statement. This one distinction, fully understood and fully internalized, has the power to transform your relationship with every goal you have ever set and every commitment you have ever made. Here is why. Most people are waiting. They have been waiting for years. They are waiting for the resistance to go away before they act. They are waiting to feel motivated before they exercise. They are waiting to feel confident before they make the difficult call. They are waiting to feel certain before they make the big decision. They are waiting to feel ready before they begin the important work. And while they wait, the days pass, the weeks pass, the years pass, and here is the brutal, non-negotiable truth. The resistance never fully goes away. The doubt doesn't disappear. The tiredness doesn't vanish. The fear doesn't evaporate. They quiet down over time, yes. They become more manageable with experience, yes. But they never completely leave. And the people who build remarkable lives, the people who achieve things worth talking about and become people worth becoming, they have not conquered those feelings. They have simply learned not to be governed by them. That is the shift. That is the entire game. Not the elimination of resistance, but the refusal to be stopped by it. From a "I will act when I feel ready" to "I will act, and feeling ready will follow." From "I will begin when the fear goes away" to "I will begin, and the fear will shrink as I move." From "I will follow through when conditions are perfect" to "conditions become more perfect through following through." This is not optimism. This is not positive thinking. This is the observed reality of how human achievement works, documented across every field of human endeavor, repeated in every story of genuine transformation. Action produces confidence. Confidence does not produce action. Movement produces momentum. Momentum does not produce movement. Starting, imperfect, uncertain, uncomfortable starting, is what begins everything. Think about every meaningful achievement in human history. Think about the athletes who were in the gym before sunrise for years. Years. Before anyone knew their name. Before anyone was watching. Before any championship was within reach. Just a person and a weight and a decision, repeated in the dark, again and again. Think about the writers who filled notebooks in obscurity. Rejection after rejection, before a single person read their words. Before a publisher believed in them. Before their own confidence was fully formed. Writing anyway. Think about the scientists who ran the same failed experiment hundreds of times before the breakthrough came, who recorded failure after failure with the same steady hand, that eventually recorded the discovery that changed everything. Think about the people who rebuilt after losing everything, who started over at 40, at 50, who looked at the wreckage of what they had built and said, "I am not done," who began again with less than they started with the first time and built something greater. Were they superhuman? No. Did they never feel exhausted? Never feel like quitting? never lie awake in the dark wondering if it was worth it? Of course they did. Every single one of them. They just refused to let those feelings make the decision. That is willpower. That is what we are building today. Part 3. What science tells you about will. For a long time, willpower was treated as a mystery, something philosophical, something spiritual, the domain of coaches and preachers and motivational speakers. Then science caught up, and what science found was both humbling and extraordinary. Your brain has a region, the prefrontal cortex, located just behind your forehead, that is responsible for what researchers call executive function. This is the part of your brain that plans, that sets goals, that overrides impulse in favor of intention, that chooses the meaningful action over the comfortable one. It is, in the most literal sense, the physical home of your will. And here is what the research tells us about it. This region can be strengthened, like a muscle, through consistent, deliberate use. The prefrontal cortex literally develops. Its connections become denser. Its responses become faster. Its ability to override the emotional brain becomes more reliable. Every time you exercise your will, every time you act despite resistance, you are physically strengthening this part of your brain. And the opposite is equally true. Every time you yield to impulse over intention, you strengthen the neural pathway of yielding. You make it a little more automatic, a little more default, a little more likely to happen again. Your brain is always learning. The question is what you are teaching it. Now, early research suggested that willpower was like a fuel tank, that it could be depleted through use, that the more decisions you made, the weaker your self-control became by the end of the day. You may have heard this idea: decision fatigue. The president who wears the same outfit every day to preserve mental energy. The executive who eats the same breakfast to avoid small choices. More recent research has complicated this picture significantly, and what it suggests is both more nuanced and more empowering. Your willpower is not a fixed resource that drains like a battery. It is, in large part, a response to your beliefs about it. When people believe their willpower is limited, it behaves as if it is limited. When people believe it is renewable and robust, it behaves that way, which means that your expectation of yourself, your narrative about your own capacity, is itself a form of will. What you tell yourself about your ability to persist actually shapes your ability to persist. This is not wishful thinking. This is documented in controlled studies with measurable results. The story you tell yourself about who you are, whether you are the kind of person who follows through, who keeps promises, who does hard things, is not just a story. It is a self-fulfilling architecture. Build the story of someone who does not quit, and your brain will work to make that story true. This is also why the small victories matter so much, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Every small act of follow-through through is not just a step toward a goal. It is a piece of evidence. Evidence that is stored in your brain about what kind of person you are. Keep enough of that evidence and a new identity forms. Not the identity you wished you had. Not the identity you performed for other people. The identity you actually built, one small choice at a time. Part 4. The mind's greatest ally here is something you need to understand about your own mind. Your brain is not always on your side. I don't mean that darkly. I mean it precisely and clinically. Your brain is designed, through millions of years of evolution, to keep you safe, comfortable, and alive. That is its primary function. Everything else is secondary, and in the ancient world, that was perfect. Safety meant survival. Comfort meant you were not in immediate danger. Avoiding hard, painful, uncertain things often meant you would live to see another day. But you are not an ancient human trying to survive a wilderness. You are a modern human with goals and dreams and a life you are actively trying to build. And your brain's deeply wired preference for safety and comfort is frequently working against you. Every time you face a challenging task, something uncertain, something uncomfortable, something with real effort attached, your brain runs a calculation. Is this necessary for survival? Is this worth the energy cost? Is there an easier path? And when the answer is no, and it almost never is, technically, your brain begins its campaign to protect you from the effort. It tells you you are tired. It tells you you deserve a rest today. You will start fresh tomorrow. It tells you this is not the right time. The conditions are not optimal. It tells you maybe this goal was not as important as you thought. It tells you that you are not ready yet, not qualified enough, not skilled enough, that other people are built for this kind of challenge, and you are fundamentally different from them. It manufactures doubt with extraordinary creativity. It crafts excuses that sound perfectly reasonable. It builds cases for delay that feel like wisdom when they are actually fear. This is the mind's greatest lie, and millions of people believe it every single day. Every single day, someone woke up with the intention to begin something important and went to bed having negotiated themselves out of it, and felt completely justified. The most dangerous lies are the ones that feel true. The lie that you are not ready. The lie that tomorrow is better than today. The lie that the fact that something is hard means it is wrong for you. The lie that other people have some quality you lack, some secret ingredient that makes hard things easier for them. They don't. The people you admire, the ones who seem effortlessly disciplined, who appear to have unlimited drive, they hear the same voices you hear. They feel the same pull toward comfort. They have the same brain running the same ancient software. They have simply developed the habit of not obeying it. Your will is the answer to the lie. Your will is what steps in when the brain starts its negotiation and says, "No, we are not doing this today. Today I decide, not my comfort, not my mood, not my fear. I decide, and then it moves. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is not about ignoring your mind or overriding every signal your body sends you. Rest is real. Recovery is necessary. There are times when stopping is exactly the right decision, the wise decision, the strategic decision. The key is learning to distinguish between two entirely different signals. The first signal says, "This is genuinely dangerous or harmful. Stop." The second says, "This is uncomfortable, and I would prefer not to." One is wisdom. One is laziness wearing the mask of wisdom. Learn that difference. Sit with it. Study your own patterns. Notice when you are genuinely protecting yourself and when you are simply avoiding discomfort, and when you identify the voice of mere preference, of comfort, of resistance that has no real authority. Answer it with your will. You do not have to argue with it. You do not have to win the debate. You do not have to silence the voice. You simply move forwards, and then returning to the same patterns. If that is all this is, then this time was wasted. You are here to change something, and change requires a mechanism. It requires a how, not just a why. So, here is the how. Here is the single most important truth about willpower that almost nobody tells you. Strong will is not something you are born with. Say it again. Strong will is not something you are born with. It is something you build. It is a skill. It is a capacity that grows through consistent, deliberate practice and atrophies through neglect. This means that where you are right now, whatever your current level of discipline, whatever your current relationship with your own word to yourself, is not your ceiling. It is your starting point. You can build this, starting today, starting in the next hour, starting with the very next decision you face. Here is the mechanism. Every time you make a decision that aligns with your deeper intention over your momentary comfort, you are training your brain. You are building the neural architecture of a disciplined person, strengthening the pathways of follow, through, of completion, of action over impulse. Every time, without exception, the brain does not care whether the act is large or small. It does not reserve its learning for dramatic moments. It learns from every single repetition. And every time you yield, every time the comfortable choice wins over the meaningful one, you reinforce the pattern of yielding. So, the small choices are everything. They are not small at all. They are the entire training. I am going to give you 4 training protocols. These are the foundational practices that build will at the level of daily life. They are not complicated. They are not secret. But executed with genuine commitment, they will change the person you are. The first training protocol, win the morning. The morning is a battlefield, not metaphorically, literally. The moment your alarm goes off, a negotiation begins inside you. Your brain, fresh from sleep, still warm and foggy and deeply preferring comfort, begins building its case for why you should stay. Just 5 more minutes. You worked hard yesterday. You need the rest. The day can wait. And in those first 10 seconds, before full consciousness has even arrived, a decision is being made that sets the tone for everything that follows. Every morning, you lose that negotiation. You teach your brain that your discomfort has authority over your decisions. You teach it that if the resistance is uncomfortable enough, it wins. Every morning you win. Every morning you move before the debate gets started. You teach the opposite. You teach your brain that you have authority, that the decision was already made last night when you set the alarm, and the only job now is to honor it. Win the morning, not every morning eventually, every morning now, because every morning is training. The second training protocol: finish what you start. Unfinished work is a slow poison, not just in terms of productivity, though it costs you there too. It is a poison to your self-image, to your self-trust, to the story you are building about who you are. Every incomplete project is a piece of evidence that you did not follow through. And that evidence accumulates. It piles up quietly in the back of your mind and begins to shape how you see yourself as someone who starts but doesn't finish, who means well but loses steam, who is good at beginnings and poor at endings. You cannot build strong will on a foundation of abandonment. Start finishing things, not perfectly. Perfection is not the goal here. Completion is the goal. Finished and imperfect is worth 10 times more than perfect and incomplete. Done builds the muscle. Done creates the evidence. Done changes the story. From this point forward, when you start something, you finish it, or you consciously decide not to finish it actively, deliberately, with a clear reason, which is entirely different from simply drifting away. A conscious choice to stop is a decision. Drifting is abdication. Finish what you start. The third training protocol: protect your attention. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. More valuable than your time. More valuable than your money. More valuable than your connections, or your talent, or your intelligence. Because everything else, your time, your talent, your energy, can only be used through the gateway of your attention. Where your attention goes, your life follows. And the modern world, every app on your phone, every platform, every algorithm running in the background of your digital life, is designed by some of the most brilliant engineers and psychologists alive, using decades of behavioral research to capture and hold your attention, not for your benefit, for theirs. Every notification is a small interruption of your will. Every mindless scroll is a small surrender of your direction. Every time you reach for your phone out of habit rather than intention, you practice being governed by impulse rather than choice. The antidote is simple but demanding. Every time you close the tab, put down the phone, and return your focus to what actually matters, you exercise will. You vote for your direction over your impulse. You demonstrate to your own brain that you are the one choosing where your attention goes. Do this enough times and it becomes character. Do it consistently and you become the rare person who can work with genuine depth in a world of shallow distraction. Protect your attention ferociously, without apology, because the life you are building depends entirely on your ability to direct your mind toward what matters and hold it there. The fourth training protocol: stay consistent when results are slow. This one will test you more than all the others combined, because your brain is wired to respond to feedback. Immediate feedback. When you act and see quick results, the motivation loop fires naturally and momentum carries you forward. But most meaningful goals, the ones genuinely worth building, do not offer quick feedback. The body does not transform in a week. The business does not become profitable in a month. The relationship does not deepen in a single conversation. The skill does not reach competence in a year. There is a gap between the work and the result, between the effort and the evidence. And in that gap, in the silence, doubt grows. Is this even working? Am I doing this right? Maybe I am missing something? Maybe this is not the right path. Maybe I should try a completely different approach. And here is where most people make the critical error. They interpret the silence as failure. They mistake the absence of visible results for the absence of progress. And they change course, abandoning a path that was actually working, searching for a faster answer that rarely exists. Consistency over time is the only currency that buys real results, not bursts of intense effort followed by long gaps. Consistent, daily, unremarkable effort, showing up when results are invisible, doing the work when no one would know if you skipped it, maintaining the standard even when the standard seems to make no difference. This is what separates people who eventually succeed from people who keep almost succeeding. The willingness to stay in the gap, stay the course, trust the process, refuse, absolutely refuse, to interpret silence as failure. These 4 protocols: winning the morning, finishing what you start, protecting your attention, and staying consistent, are not glamorous. Nobody will see you doing them. Nobody will applaud you for them. No one will know except you. And over time, over weeks and months and years of these small choices stacking on top of each other, something will happen that no single day could predict. You will become someone else, not overnight, not dramatically, but completely. Part 6. The enemies of will. We have been talking about how to build your will. Now, let's talk about what destroys it. Because you can be doing everything right, training consistently, making small good choices, building momentum, and still find that something is quietly undermining you. You need to know your enemies. The first enemy is comparison. Nothing drains will faster than measuring your chapter 3 against someone else's chapter 20. You see the person who has already achieved what you are working toward. You see their results, their confidence, their ease, and from where you stand, it looks effortless. It looks as if it came quickly. It looks as if they had something you do not. What you do not see is the years of unglamorous work that preceded the version you are observing. You do not see the mornings they questioned everything, the times they nearly quit, the private failures that never became public stories. Comparison is always a lie because you are comparing your interior reality. All your doubt and struggle and uncertainty to someone else's exterior presentation. It is never an equal comparison. It is never accurate, and it always produces one of two destructive responses. Either false superiority if you feel you are ahead, or corrosive discouragement if you feel you are behind. Both take your eyes off your own path. Both steal your will. Stay in your lane. Measure yourself against the person you were last month, last year, at the beginning of this effort. That is the only comparison with any real meaning. The second enemy is the need for external validation. If your will to continue depends on other people affirming your progress, you have outsourced your engine to people who have no idea where you are going. Other people will not always see what you are building while you are building it. They will not always understand the choice you are making. They will sometimes question it, sometimes discourage it, sometimes be threatened by it. If you need their approval to continue, you are not driving your own life. You are a passenger in a vehicle that others are steering. Build the capacity to be your own witness, to know when you did the work, not because someone praised you, but because you were there. To know when you showed up with everything you had, not because someone noticed, but because you did. Internal validation is the only kind that builds will. External validation is whether it changes without warning and you cannot rely on it. The third enemy is perfectionism. Perfectionism is not a high standard. It is a disguised fear. People who demand perfection before they act are not committed to excellence. They are committed to safety, to never being judged for something imperfect, to never having to risk the vulnerability of showing the world something unpolished. And perfectionism kills will because it creates a standard that can never be met, which means the bar for beginning is permanently set at unreachable. The antidote is not low standards. The antidote is the understanding that the perfect version of anything comes through iteration, through doing it imperfectly, learning, adjusting, doing it again. There is no other path to mastery. Release the need for the first attempt to be the final one. Begin badly if necessary. Begin uncertainly. Begin incompletely. The only version that cannot be improved is the one that never existed. The fourth enemy is the all or nothing trap. This is the belief that discipline must be perfect to count. That if you miss one day, the streak is broken. That if you ate badly at one meal, the whole week is ruined. That If you fell short of your standard once, the effort is compromised, and you might as well start over Monday. All or nothing thinking is one of the most effective destroyers of long-term will because it transforms every small setback into a reason to abandon the entire effort. Hear this clearly. Progress is not linear. It never has been. It never will be. The person who exercises 5 days out of 7, week after week, for a year produces results. The person who maintains a perfect streak for 6 weeks and then quits when they miss a day does not. Consistency over perfection. Always. When you miss a day, your only job is to not miss 2. When you fall short, your only job is to return. Quickly, without drama, without extended self-punishment. The will to return after a setback is often more important than the will to avoid the setback in the first place. Part 7. The identity shift. There is a threshold. Most people never cross it. Most people spend their entire lives on one side of it. Using willpower as a tool they reach for in difficult moments and put back down when the moment passes. Always effortful. Always requiring conscious activation. Always feeling like a fight. But there is another side, and on that other side, something fundamentally different is happening. On the other side of that threshold, willpower is no longer something you use. It is something you are. Let me explain precisely what I mean. On the first side, you wake up and think, do I have the willpower today to do what I planned? You check in with yourself. You assess your energy levels, your mood, your motivation. You decide whether today is a day when you are capable of following through. You are treating your will as a resource that may or may not be available on any given morning. Some mornings it shows up, some mornings it does not. On the other side, the question does not exist. There is no check-in. There is no assessment of your current motivational state. You simply do what you said you were going to do, because that is who you are. It is no longer a decision in the active sense. It is an expression of character. An honest person does not wake up each morning and decide whether to be honest today. A generous person does not calculate whether to be generous this particular Thursday. These qualities have moved beyond decision into identity. That is where you are going with your will. How do you get there? You already know the answer. You cross the threshold with the small daily choices. You cross it by repeating acts of will until they stop feeling like acts of will and start feeling like acts of character. You cross it one followed through commitment at a time until following through is simply what you do, because it is who you are. And then one day, you cannot name the specific day, because it does not happen in a single moment. You realize that you are not fighting yourself anymore. The internal negotiation is over. The excuses have stopped having real power. They still show up occasionally. The voice of comfort still speaks, but it speaks to someone who is no longer listening. The right time has stopped being something you wait for. You understand now, in your bones, that the right time was always now, always the present moment, with its imperfect conditions and incomplete certainty. You simply act. This is the identity of will, and it is built, as all identities are built, through the accumulation of consistent action over time. Now, I want to address something directly, because some people hear about this threshold, this idea of will becoming identity, and they assume it means becoming hard, becoming cold, becoming someone who has no relationship with rest, pleasure, ease. That is not what this is. The person with a developed will is not someone who never rests. They rest with full presence and without guilt, because their rest is chosen, not defaulted into. They are not someone who never enjoys comfort. They enjoy comfort deeply, because their comfort is earned, not escaped into. They are not someone who never struggles. They struggle often and fully, because they are attempting things that require everything they have. The difference is not the absence of softness. The difference is the presence of direction. They know where they are going, and everything, the effort and the rest, the push and the recovery, is in service of that direction. That is the identity of will, not rigidity, direction. You stop negotiating with excuses. Think about the sheer volume of energy that goes into internal debate, the back and forth every morning over whether to do what you planned, the mental argument in the afternoon over whether to work on your project or watch something, the evening conversation with yourself about whether you are going to honor tomorrow or let it be another day that drifted. All of that negotiation costs real energy, real mental bandwidth, energy that could be flowing directly into your work, your relationships, your growth. When your will becomes your identity, the negotiation ends. The energy is freed, and it redirects entirely into the things that matter. You stop waiting for the right time. I need to say something direct here, because this deserves to be said without softening. There is no right time. There has never been a right time in the history of human achievement. There will not be one in your future. The right time is a story. It is the most seductive story your fear has ever written, because it wears the costume of wisdom. It sounds like strategy. It sounds like patience. It sounds like the kind of careful thinking that serious, mature people engage in before making important moves. It is not patience. It is paralysis in the mask of patience. It is the decision not to risk failure dressed up as the decision to be smart about timing. People with genuine will see through this disguise immediately. They understand that the conditions for starting will never be perfect, and more importantly, that the conditions improve through starting, through action, through the commitment that makes you resourceful, that surfaces the knowledge you didn't know you lacked, that builds the confidence you were waiting to feel before you began. The strongest act of will available to you today, right now, in this moment, is to begin something while imperfect, while uncertain, while afraid, while you still feel not quite ready, because you are more ready than you believe, and you will be more ready still once you begin. Part 8. Will under fire, I need to address something directly, because some of you listening to this are not just facing ordinary resistance. You are not just negotiating with a snooze button or managing the pull of social media. Some of you are carrying real weight, real failure, real loss, setbacks that knocked you down harder than you expected, situations where you did everything right and things went wrong anyway, circumstances that were not fair, that were not your fault, and that cost you things that mattered. Some of you have had years taken from you, health crises, broken relationships, failed businesses, grief that changed the chemistry of who you are. I want to speak to those moments, because this is where will is not just useful. It is the difference between a life that recovers and one that doesn't. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps. He lost almost everyone he loved. He was stripped of everything: his home, his work, his freedom, his family. Every material anchor to his previous life was destroyed. And in those conditions, the most extreme conditions a human being can face, he made an observation that has outlasted everything written in comfort. A person can endure almost anyhow if they have a why, a reason, a deep, personal, non-negotiable reason to keep going. He did not say that people with strong muscles survived. He did not say that people with high intelligence survived. He did not say that the young or the strong or the privileged survived. He said the ones who survived had a why that their suffering could not reach. That is the deepest form of will, not the will to act when you feel good, not the will to push through when the resistance is merely uncomfortable, the will to continue when everything external has been taken, when the loss is real, when the setback is not a minor obstacle, but a fundamental disruption of the life you were building. What is your why? Not your surface level why. Not I want to be successful, or I want to be healthy, or I want financial freedom. Those are destinations, not reasons. And when the road to the destination becomes genuinely painful, destinations alone do not hold. Your real why is the answer to a deeper question. What is this for? Who does it serve? What kind of person does pursuing it require me to become? What will I have contributed to the people I love, to the world I inhabit, by having pushed through this rather than giving up? What does this say about who I am? When you are connected to a why at that depth, a why rooted not in what you want to receive, but in who you want to be and what you want to give, setbacks lose their ability to permanently stop you. They hurt. They will continue to hurt. Nobody with genuine will is pretending that hard things don't feel hard, but they cannot stop you, because stopping would mean abandoning not just a goal. It would mean abandoning the version of yourself that the struggle is building. And you will not do that. There is also a practical dimension of will under pressure that deserves serious attention. When you are genuinely depleted physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted in the deep way that real hardship creates, your will is at its most vulnerable. The resources you normally draw on are low. Your capacity to override impulse is diminished. Your ability to keep perspective is reduced. In those moments, relying on raw willpower alone is not wisdom. It is stubbornness, and stubbornness burns people out. In those moments, you need structure more than inspiration. Structure means the decisions have already been made. The environment has already been arranged. The accountability has already been established. So, when your will is running low, the architecture of your life carries some of the load. Remove the obstacles between you and your essential commitments. Set up your physical space to make good choices easy and poor choices harder. Tell the people around you what you are working toward, so that when your internal resources are low, external support adds its weight. Decide the important things when you are at your strongest. What time you will wake, what you will work on first, what boundaries you will hold, what you will not negotiate on, regardless of how you feel in the moment. This is not weakness. This is not cheating. This is the wisdom of a general who prepares the battlefield before the fighting begins, who does not wait until the chaos of the moment to make decisions that should have been made in the calm. Design your environment for your best self, so that your worst days still move you forward. And when the hardest moments come, and they will come, for everyone without exception, let this be your anchor. This is not the end. This is where most people stop. And I am not most people. The gap between good and great is almost never talent. It is almost never circumstance. It is almost always this: the willingness to continue when continuing feels impossible. Every person who built something remarkable pushed through at least one moment when stopping would have been completely understandable, when the world would not have blamed them for quitting, when quitting was, by every external measure, the reasonable thing to do. And they didn't, not because they were superhumanly strong, but because their will, at the critical moment, was 1 degree stronger than the resistance. 1 degree, that is all it takes. Not mastery, not certainty, not a full tank. 1 degree more will than resistance. That is the moment, and it is available to you. Part 9. The compound effect of will. There is a principle operating silently in every domain of human development. You know it in finance. Small amounts of money invested consistently over long periods of time, compounding on themselves, grow into extraordinary wealth, not because any single deposit was large, but because each one builds on the ones before it. The same principle operates with equal and often greater power in the development of will. Every act of will compounds. Every morning you chose to get up when you didn't want to. That choice built something invisible but real. Every time you finished when you wanted to stop early, something was added. Every distraction you turned away from, every excuse you refused, every small act of follow through that nobody witnessed or applauded, something accumulated, and those accumulations do not disappear. They do not reset. They crystallize over time into the substance of a new self. This is why you cannot judge the process by looking at a single day. A single day of training does not make an athlete. A single day of discipline does not make a person of character. A single day of following through does not rebuild broken self-trust, but a year of single days does. And 5 years of single days does something that most people have never allowed themselves to experience, because they gave up before the compound effect had time to work. The most common reason people abandon meaningful efforts is not that the path was wrong. It is that they evaluated the path too early. They looked at week 3 and made a judgment that should only be made at year 3. They saw the absence of dramatic results and concluded that progress was not happening, when in fact progress was happening below the surface, in the invisible accumulations of character and capacity that eventually become visible all at once. This is the nature of compound growth. It is slow and invisible for a long time, and then it is not. Understand this principle, and it changes your relationship with consistency. You stop needing to see results in order to maintain effort. You understand that the effort is the result, right now, today, in this moment, regardless of what you can observe. The neural pathways are forming. The self-trust is building. The identity is crystallizing. It is working even when it looks like it isn't. Stay the course. Trust the compound. Now, let me tell you something about freedom that most people have backwards. Most people equate freedom with the absence of constraint. No rules, no structure, no discipline. Do whatever you want, whenever you feel like it. That is the popular idea of freedom, and it is exactly wrong. The person with no self-discipline is not free. They are enslaved to their cravings, to their impulses, to their fears, to whatever happens to feel compelling or comfortable in any given moment. Their life is not being directed by their values or their intentions. It is being redirected constantly by their reactions. They are not going somewhere. They are being taken somewhere, and they have no idea where that somewhere leads until they arrive. The person who has built genuine will, who can choose to act against discomfort, who can override impulse with intention, who can maintain direction across time and setbacks. That person is free, free to build the life they actually chose, free to become who they genuinely decided to be, free in the only way that matters, free to pursue what is meaningful, rather than what is merely comfortable. Self-discipline is not the cage. discipline is the key. And there is one more dimension of the compound effect that I want you to sit with. The will you build does not only change your outcomes, it changes the entire quality of how you experience your life. When you become someone who keeps their word to themselves, who follows through, who finishes, who shows up, a quiet confidence settles into you, gradually, invisibly, and then completely. Not arrogance. Arrogance is loud and fragile. This is different. This is a grounded, quiet, unshakable knowing that you can trust yourself. That when you make a commitment, it will be kept. That when something important needs to be done, you will do it. That when things get hard, you will not disappear. That self-trust is one of the most precious things a human being can possess. Because everything in life is built on it. Your relationships depend on it. The trust other people place in you is rooted in the trust you have in yourself. Your work depends on it. The quality of what you produce is shaped by whether you trust yourself to follow through on the standards you set. Your peace of mind depends on it. The quiet that comes from knowing you did what needed doing, that peace is unavailable to the person who is always negotiating with themselves. Build will, earn self-trust, and watch what becomes possible in every corner of your life. Part 10. The daily architecture of a disciplined life. Everything we have talked about until now. The definition of will, the science behind it, the protocols for building it, the identity that forms when it becomes habit. All of it needs to land somewhere. It needs to land in your day, because will is not built in concept. It is built in the hours between waking and sleeping. It is built in the decisions you make at 6 in the morning, and at 2 in the afternoon, and at 9 at night, when your energy is low, and the temptation to give yourself the rest of the evening is strong. So, let's talk about the daily architecture of a disciplined life. Not the ideal life. Not some perfect routine that requires superhuman circumstances to maintain. The realistic, sustainable, daily structure that actually builds will over time. The first pillar of daily architecture. Begin before you are ready. Stop waiting for motivation to arrive before you start. Stop consulting your internal weather report and deciding whether conditions are favorable for action today. Begin before you feel ready. Before you feel inspired, before you feel certain. Pick the most important thing on your list, the one thing that, if completed, would make the day genuinely meaningful, and begin it first, before the inbox, before the news, before the social media check, before the coffee ritual that quietly becomes a 45-minute delay. The first action of your working day sets the psychological tone for everything that follows. Begin with something meaningful, and you create momentum. Begin with distraction, and you create drift. Begin before you are ready. Every day. The second pillar, make your commitments specific. Vague intentions do not produce action. They produce anxiety. I will exercise more means nothing. Your brain does not know when, for how long, what kind, or how hard. It has no instructions. And when the moment comes when you could act, there is no clear commitment to honor, just a fuzzy aspiration that can always be met later. I will walk for 30 minutes at 7 a.m. 5 days per week is a commitment, specific, measurable, with a clear trigger, a clear duration, and a clear frequency. The more specific your commitments, the less your will has to do in the moment of decision. The decision is already made. Your only job is to honor it. Apply this to everything important. When will you do it? How long will you do it? Under what conditions will you allow exceptions? Decide all of this in advance when your willpower is high and your judgment is clear, so that you are not making the decision freshly each time, vulnerable to whatever you feel in the moment. Specificity is the architecture of will. The third pillar, honor your word to yourself as sacred. You may already be very good at keeping promises to other people. Many of us are. We do not want to disappoint those we respect, those we love, those we are accountable to. But we become casual, sometimes alarmingly casual, about the promises we make to ourselves. We break them easily. We renegotiate them comfortably. We explain them away with an eloquence we would never apply to a commitment made to someone else. And every broken self-promise costs you, not in any way the outside world can see, but internally, in the quiet erosion of self-trust that happens every time you do not do what you said you would do. Reverse this pattern. Begin treating your own word as the most sacred commitment in your life. Not because no one is watching, because you are watching, and you are the person you most need to be able to trust. When you say you will do something, do it. When circumstances genuinely make it impossible, reschedule it immediately, specifically, with the same seriousness you would apply to rescheduling an important meeting with someone you deeply respect. You are that person. Treat yourself that way. The fourth pillar, protect your energy strategically. Will draws on a reserve. That reserve is replenished by sleep, by proper nutrition, by adequate recovery, by the management of chronic stress. And it is depleted by neglecting all of those things. Protecting your energy is not indulgence. It is not a softness or a weakness. It is a strategic priority for anyone who intends to perform at the level that meaningful goals require. The athlete who sleeps 8 hours, eats well, manages stress, and builds recovery into their training, produces more than the one who trains on 4 hours of sleep, and calls the suffering discipline. Discipline is not about destroying yourself. Discipline is about directing yourself, and direction requires a functioning vehicle. Sleep, eat well, build genuine recovery into your schedule, not as a reward for hard work, but as a prerequisite for it. The fifth pillar, build in daily reflection. At the end of each day, even briefly, even just for 5 minutes, look honestly at how you showed up. not to judge yourself, not to generate shame or self-criticism, but to observe with clear and compassionate eyes the patterns in your choices. Where did you act with will? Where did you yield to what was easy when you intended to choose what was right? Where did you honor your word to yourself? Where did you negotiate against your own better judgment? What does the pattern say? Reflection is how experience becomes wisdom. Without it, we repeat ourselves indefinitely, experiencing the same patterns over and over, and wondering why things do not change. With it, we grow, we adjust, we bring consciousness to the areas that have been running on autopilot. 5 minutes of honest daily reflection will accelerate your development more than almost any other single practice. The 6th pillar: build accountability that costs you something. Tell someone what you are working toward, not to perform for them, not to get their approval, but to add the weight of social commitment to your internal intention. Human beings are social creatures. We are wired to consider how our actions look to others. Used carelessly, this becomes approval seeking. Used strategically, it becomes a powerful tool for follow-through. When you commit publicly, when you tell someone what you plan to do and when, the cost of not following through increases, not just in their eyes, but in your own. Find one person, a friend, a partner, a mentor, someone who will ask you whether you did what you said you would do and make your commitment to them. Let their expectation add weight to your own. These 6 pillars, beginning before ready, making specific commitments, honoring your own word, protecting your energy, reflecting daily, and building accountability, are the practical structure through which will is built and maintained over the long term. They are not extraordinary. They are not secret, but executed with consistency, they create a life that most people will look at from the outside and call exceptional. It will not be exceptional because you had more talent or more luck or more time. It will be exceptional because you built the internal architecture to use what you had fully, consistently, over the long haul. Part 11. What you are really building. We are coming toward the end. And before the close, I want to zoom out. I want to pull back from the protocols and the science and the daily practices, and speak to the larger picture. Because if you have been following carefully, you may have noticed something. We started by talking about willpower, about discipline, about the ability to act despite resistance. But what we have really been talking about underneath all of it is something much larger. We have been talking about who you become, because the development of will is not ultimately about achieving specific goals. Yes, you will achieve more. Yes, your life will become more of what you intend and less of what happens to you. But the deepest transformation is not in the outcomes. It is in the person. The person who has trained their will across years of small, faithful, unglamorous choices, who has honored their word to themselves thousands of times in private, who has pushed through resistance, not because it was easy, but because they decided to. That person has built something inside themselves that no circumstance can take. Not a goal achieved, a self forged, a self that knows, at the cellular level, that it can be trusted, that, when things get hard, it will not abandon itself, that when the easy path and the right path diverge, it knows which one it takes. That is not an achievement. That is a character. And character is the foundation that outlasts everything else. Goals change, circumstances change, resources come and go, opportunities open and close. But who you are, the person you have built yourself into through the faithful practice of will, that is permanent. That is yours. Nobody can give it to you. Nobody can take it away, and it becomes your gift, quietly and without announcement, to every person who knows you. Your children are watching, not your words, your choices, whether you do what you said you would do, whether you persist when it is hard, whether your actions and your values match. Your colleagues are watching. The people you lead or work alongside are drawing their own conclusions about what is possible, what effort looks like, what commitment looks like, from observing you. Your friends are watching. Your community is watching. When you build genuine will and live by it, you become a living argument for what is possible in a human life. Not a loud argument, not a performative one, a quiet, consistent, undeniable one. The close your will is your power, we come back to where we began. I asked you a question at the start. When was the last time you did something hard genuinely, uncomfortably hard, simply because you decided to? Now, I want to ask you a different question. What would your life look like in 5 years if that was your default? Not once in a while, not when motivation was high, not when conditions were favorable, every day, as a matter of character, as an expression of who you are. What would your body look like? What would your work look like? What would your relationships look like? What would you have built? What would you have healed? What would you have become? Sit with that image for a moment. Let it be real. That life is not a fantasy. It is not reserved for someone with gifts you do not have or advantages you were not given. It is the natural outcome of the consistent practice of will. It is available to you, not to a better version of you in the future. To you, right now, as you are, with what you have, in the conditions that exist today. Because the gap between where you are and that life is not made of talent. It is not made of luck. It is not made of time or money or connections, or whatever else you have been telling yourself the story is about. It is made of choices. Small, daily, cumulative, unsexy choices. To act despite resistance. To keep the word you give to yourself. To continue when everything in you says to stop. Success does not belong to the most talented. Hear me say this clearly, because it is the most important thing I will say today. Success, real success, lasting success, success built on something solid and permanent, belongs to the one who refuses to give up, to the one who gets up one more time than they fall, to the one who works when no one is watching, to the one who believes when no one is affirming, to the one who stays on the path when the path is dark, and the destination is invisible, and the doubt is loud, to the one who keeps going when everything inside them is asking to stop. That is the person, not the most gifted, not the most advantaged, not the one who never struggled or doubted or nearly quit, the one who refused to give up. That can be you. That is you if you choose it. Right now, in this moment, with this decision, your will is your power, not your past, not your circumstances, not the family you were born into, or the opportunities you did not have, or the failures that are behind you, not the voice in your head that has been negotiating you out of your own potential for years. Your will, strengthen it, one morning at a time, one kept promise at a time, one refused excuse at a time, one small act of follow through that nobody sees and nobody applauds, one at a time. Strengthen it and watch what becomes possible. Watch what you build. Watch who you become. You are more capable than you know. You are more resilient than you have been asked to be. You are more powerful than you have been told. And you have barely begun. Now go, begin, and do not stop. End of script.